Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jack Edwards and this is Jackuary. Jackuary is a terrible pun on the word January, and I'm basically trying to upload every single weekday. Emphasis on trying. For today's video, I thought I would finally discuss something that I get asked so much. It is genuinely probably the thing I get asked most about, especially on Instagram. And that question is, how do you travel so much as a student? Now, there is nothing I love more than getting to travel and see the world and experience new things and new cultures and just, I love everything about it. And for me, when applying to university and going through the hell that is UCAS, a big decision for me was whether to do a gap year or go to university. Because one of my huge priorities in life is to travel and see the world, and so I've kind of tried to find a way, even though I chose university over doing a gap year, to still incorporate travel into my lifestyle. So let's talk about it.
On tonight's program, ladies and gentlemen, we have something that's going to make you sick.
Another super important website that I absolutely swear by is Skyscanner. If you haven't heard of Skyscanner, basically it's a website and an app where you can check for the cheapest flights possible. If you have a very specific journey in mind, so like a specific country and specific dates you want to go to, you can set price alerts. And basically, because they're constantly tracking the prices of flights, they will email you to tell you when prices dip and drop so that you can book them. However, my favorite feature on this website is the fact that you don't actually need to know where you want to fly to find cheap flights. Basically, when you're filling in your information, you can put your local airport or even like nearby airports and then just put in the search bar everywhere. You can then search by whole month, you can search on specific dates, you can just find the cheapest flights possible for a certain date. And almost without exception, there will be one crazy cheap deal to a really cool place. This is how I ended up going to Gdansk in Poland, a place I'd never even heard of, but I saw that flights were super cheap, so looked it up and it looked awesome, and we had the best time. It was so freaking cool. Same with Tallinn in Estonia. It was just the cheapest place to fly to, and it was so fun. And so that brings me on to my next point, which is don't always go on the beaten track. Like, sometimes it's cool to experience somewhere where none of your friends have been and no one you know has been there, but you can, you know, look up some guides, especially like Lonely Planet is super cool. Just look up the location on Instagram, you know, do your research. If you find a really crazy cheap flight to somewhere for like £9 or something, then look it up and see whether it's somewhere that sounds interesting, and it's more than likely that it will be. The next super crucial thing is accommodation and finding the cheapest, best accommodation. I personally always use Hostelworld or Airbnb. Hostelworld basically allows you to search for hostels and you can sleep in like private rooms or shared bedrooms. I've never ever had a problem sleeping in a shared bedroom, like it's so fine. The most incredible deal I've ever managed to find on Hostelworld was £3 for a night in a hostel in Vietnam, where you had a happy hour in the evening where they just had a tankard full of rum and coke, which was completely free to all guests, free breakfast in the morning, and a spring roll making class. So we basically had an hour of free drinks, dinner and breakfast and the accommodation for £3. That is literally crazy. I know that's a bit of an exception, but you can find amazing deals like that. Even like within the UK, whenever I have to stay in London, like last minute, I'll always book a hostel. If you're going away with like a group of friends or a partner or someone that you want to like spend time in private with, then I would definitely recommend Airbnb. I've found so many amazing deals which are so much cheaper than hotels, and you actually get a whole apartment. Plus you actually get a sense of like living in the city. I stayed in one in Milan where we basically stayed right in the center of the city. There was so much buzz and liveliness, and we were in an apartment block with like real citizens of the city. So I don't know, it felt like a bit more of an authentic experience, plus it's really fun kind of trying to find the apartment and getting into it and getting the keys and stuff. Like I really enjoy that part of the experience as well. Now my next kind of tip is not to underestimate how much you can do in a weekend. I would definitely say that, especially in my first year when I thought of travel, I always thought like of doing it in the holidays, but actually you can do so much in a weekend, especially if you can take off like the Friday or the Monday, and so you basically get like 3 days. But if there's like a small airport near you or a bigger one that you can drive to or get cheap public transport to, because for example my local airport is London Gatwick, but actually flights are always cheaper from Luton, and so actually it makes sense to get the train to Luton instead of Gatwick, because then I save more money overall. But yeah, I've done so many city breaks where you can easily see all the highlights in a weekend, especially if you follow like online guides, especially free online walking tours, because basically then you do a self-guided trip around the city, you can stop wherever you want and you didn't pay a single penny for it. Similarly to that, there's an app called Maps.me, which again is completely free and doesn't use up your 3G or 4G or whatever. You can basically download apps and it uses GPS to show you where you are on the map, but you don't need to be connected to Wi-Fi or have service or anything like that. You can always use it. So if you did get caught up in some kind of issue, that could save you some exclusive data roaming charges. Some tips, I guess, for saving money whilst you're out in another country. Number one, never stop for dinner at the first place you see. Always look around. You can always come back to it, you know. I think it's really cool, like, as you're out in the day, have a look at some menus that are on the wall, or as you go past, just check out a menu and see what the food looks like, and you can always find a crazy good deal. For instance, when I interrailed in Amsterdam, all of the restaurants around the canals were so flipping expensive, and all you have to do is go one street back to find pizza, pasta, lasagna, everything for like a fiver. The prices in city centres will be crazy, featuring Beyonce, like 50 Shades of Grey, and that is because as a tourist you are most likely to be in touristy areas, but just going a few streets back or slightly further afield you will find some absolute gems, where the food is just as good if not better, and you don't have to sell one of your internal organs on the black market to be able to afford it. Also, I always have a currency converter app on my phone, so I can always check what I'm actually paying. It can get so confusing, especially when a currency is quite inflated, because it's quite easy to forget what you're actually spending. It just feels like monopoly money. So if you have a currency converter on your phone, if you go to like a market, say, and someone is bartering and they give you a price, you can just really quickly check what that actually relates to and translates to in British pounds or whatever currency you use. Definitely do your research on public transport and taxi prices before you go. For example, what is a good taxi price? What should you expect to pay? Because they will try to rip you off, obviously. Often public transport will take slightly longer, but will be like a fifth of the price. Also, just in terms of getting around during the day, like, it's very rare that I ever take a taxi when I'm abroad. Like, you can always use public transport. One lesson I have learned is always check when the last train home is, when the last bus home is. Always check that, because you will get caught out. Also, whenever you go abroad, always bring your student card with you, because you can usually get a student discount at like attractions or museums or loads of different things, including sometimes free entry, so it's really worth bringing it along with you just in case. Also, I just realized one thing I kind of forgot to mention before is to utilize non-term dates. Prices of flights always go up dramatically when it's no longer UK student term time. However, this mostly applies to secondary schools and primary schools, because families will often go away over the holidays or be looking to book flights at that time. If you're a university student, however, you are a bit more flexible, because you will usually break up 1 week early or go back 1 week late, and those extra little bits that you get are your dream ticket to somewhere amazing. You'll notice this especially if you look on Skyscanner and select like the whole month option. You will see that as soon as it gets into school holidays, school holidays, prices of flights take off, if you don't mind the aviation pun. And for the final part of this video, I wanted to talk about money and finances and being able to fund these trips, because it's all well and good talking about how to save money once you're there and how to book the cheapest option, but you actually need the funds to get there first, to have the fun. So one way that I really like to look at it is that you have different ways and different options of how you spend your money. So if you're someone who has the habit of always buying a coffee whenever you go past, say, Starbucks, think of how much that adds up. And if you cut out that coffee that you got every day, every other day, every week, how much money would you actually save? For example, let's say you spend an average of £2.50 every time you go into a Starbucks. After 10 visits, that's £25. That is a flight. Genuinely, that is a flight. So do that 10 more times, you've got your return. That's pretty important, we do want to come back. Like, look at your bank account, at your bank statement, and see what it is that you could cut out to save some money. Is there something that you always buy when you go and do your weekly shop that you don't really need? Is there a different supermarket you could go to buy that food so that it's generally cheaper every single time, and that money that you save can go into a pot for travel? Equally, the reason that I am able to travel a lot whilst I'm at university is because I work. I work every single day. The nature of being freelance and self-employed kind of means that you are kind of working all the time, but the hours are scattered and you can kind of make them work for yourself. But I have some tips kind of on working in general. One of the best things you can do is work for a student organisation and work within the frame of your university. Work for a student bar, work for a students' union, work in the catering team for some catered accommodation, see if there are any cleaning roles that you could do in like halls of residence, if there are jobs in the library or cafes which are owned by the university or different departments. Basically what I'm saying is, if you're employed by the university, then they will understand your needs as a student, so you won't have to work over the holidays, because the university doesn't really operate over the holidays. If you need to take time off to focus on your degree, they have a vested interest in you passing your degree, so they kind of will help you out with that. Equally, if all of your colleagues are students, they'll be very likely to want to swap shifts with you when you need it, or cover for you because they want the money too. I think that kind of thing could be so great, but obviously alternatives, maybe working in a seasonal job. So for example, for a clothing retail brand who will be kind of always employing students, so you work during the term time and then you can kind of transfer to your local branch over the holidays, and then obviously people who are from that city or town will come back from their universities over the holidays and do that work again. So basically a job that you can transfer within the same company when you're at home and when you're at uni. Especially if you do a degree with less contact hours, I think it's really great to give you some kind of order to your day. Alternatives, if you say have to be at university all day and you only really have the evenings free, think about tutoring. The fact that you're at university is really valuable and a very good marketing tool to get someone to pay you to tutor, maybe their kids, and that kind of thing gives you a lot of flexibility. Also promoter roles, so for like nightclubs and bars and student events and gyms, that kind of thing. They are always looking for students to plug their brands and to promote them. You know, like things like standing in a marketplace and handing out leaflets, like they don't want to be doing that, but you can. So those are my kind of tips for working whilst you're at university. And yeah, I think if you really focus on saving money with the ambition of using it to travel, you will eventually get there and you'll be able to book an amazing trip and have the best time. So that wraps up my sort of budget travel tips for students. I hope this video helps. These are genuinely the reasons that I am able to travel so much as a university student. For now, I've been Jack Edwards. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a like if you liked it, and subscribe for more from me. Don't forget, I've also got 50% off of my yearly planners if you want to plan all your holidays in that, and you can get that 50% off promotion on inkoutsidethebox.co.uk using the code Jacuary. So have a lovely day and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye!
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.